All right, today we are diving into a book that, it really changed the game for teachers everywhere. We're talking about Doug Lemov's Teach Like a Champion. So, here's a thought. What if the secrets to amazing teaching aren't some grand, complicated philosophy? What if it's all about a series of tiny, almost invisible, brilliant moves? That's the question Doug Lemov started with. And honestly, it's the mystery we're going to unpack right now. The foreword to his book has this perfect comparison. It says that if John Madden is the master explainer for pro football, then Doug Lemov, he's the John Madden of teaching. And it's so true. Picture this guy as a coach, just poring over thousands of hours of game film, not of football, but of master teachers, trying to figure out move by move, what is it they do that works so well. Okay, so let's crack open that playbook, shall we? This first section is all about being the Madden of teaching, how Lemov managed to take all that vague advice teachers get and turn it into something real, something you can actually do. You see, when Lemov was a new teacher, he was getting all this advice, like have high expectations. That sounds great, right? But what does that mean? What are you supposed to do at 8:25 on a Tuesday morning to show high expectations? That's the problem he zeroed in on. So instead of these vague ideas, he found these super specific, actionable techniques. Things like when giving directions, stand still, or use a countdown, or require complete sentences. These aren't just ideas. They're moves you can practice and get really, really good at. And that really gets to the heart of his whole philosophy. Let's call it an artisan's toolkit. It's this powerful idea that behind the art of teaching, there's a tangible craft. He uses this fantastic analogy in the book. It basically says, before an artist can create a masterpiece like the David, they have to learn how to use a chisel, right? You can't just be a genius artist without knowing the tools. And teaching is exactly the same. You have to master the fundamental skills before you can create that classroom magic. This is also why he's so careful with his words, especially the difference between a strategy and a technique. A strategy is the big idea, like get out of the blocks fast in a race. A technique, though, is the how. It's incline your body at 5 degrees. See the difference? You can't really practice getting out fast, but you can practice that 5-degree incline over and over and over until it's perfect. And that's how you get great. And what's so fascinating, maybe even a little ironic, is that the things that work best are often the things that get totally overlooked. We're talking about stuff like passing out papers efficiently, or having a do now activity right at the start of class, using a stopwatch to make transitions faster. None of this sounds revolutionary, does it? But Lemov argues these aren't just small things, they're moral imperatives. Because every second you save is a second more for learning. It all adds up to create this incredible culture. Okay, so let's dive into a specific one. Let's look at a technique in action. First up, no opt-out. The idea is so simple, but it's so powerful. It just means that in this classroom, it's not okay to not try. So here's the rule. If a student can't answer a question, the whole interaction isn't over until that same student eventually answers it correctly. I don't know is no longer an escape hatch. It's just the start of the process. So let's walk through it. Step 1. The teacher asks James a question. James gets it wrong or says he doesn't know. Now, a lot of teachers would just move on, but not here. Step 2. The teacher gets the correct answer from another student. Okay, great. But here's the key move, step 3, the return. The teacher goes right back to James and says, now you, James, what's the subject? And the whole thing doesn't end until James himself says the correct answer. Everyone succeeds, no one gets to opt out. And this idea, this commitment to making sure every single student gets it, that flows perfectly into our next technique. It's called Right is Right, and it's all about holding out for 100%. The thinking here is just so critical. As a teacher, you have to set and defend a really high bar for what's correct. Why? Because the moment a student hears you say right or good, their brain kind of stops working on that problem. They think they've got it. So if you give them that validation for an answer that's only kind of right, you're actually doing them a disservice. You're letting them believe they've mastered something when they really haven't. Okay, here's the classic example from the book. A student says a peninsula is where water indents into the land. It's so tempting for a teacher to say, right, well, almost. But hold on, that's not right at all. That's the definition of a bay. So a right is right teacher doesn't do that. They stop, they say, actually, you're thinking of a bay. Let's get the real definition for a peninsula. They hold out for that 100% correct answer. So, okay, you've got all these little moves. No opt-out, right is right. efficient transitions. What happens when you stack them all together, day after day? Well, let's zoom out and look at the big picture. This is where you get a true culture of excellence. This is where the micro creates something macro. Look at that number, 100%. That was the math proficiency rate for Bob Zimmerly's students at a school called Rochester Prep. Not 90%, not 98, 100%. They weren't just good, they were perfect. They outperformed every single one of the wealthy suburban schools in their area. And that right there tells you everything you need to know. This isn't just a nice theory in a book. The data is real. The results are real. Great teaching built on these specific, concrete, learnable moves is powerful enough to close the achievement gap. Full stop. So what should we take away from all this? Well, a few big things. First, great teaching isn't some magic gift you're born with. It's a craft you can learn. Second, getting great at it means practicing specific, fundamental skills, just like a musician or an athlete. And finally, all those little, deliberate actions add up to create a huge culture of excellence. It makes success something you can actually learn and repeat. And that kind of leaves us with one last big question to chew on, right? We've seen how this works for teaching, which is, let's be honest, one of the most complex jobs on the planet. But what if this applies to everything? What if any complex skill could be mastered if we just learned how to break it down and teach it like a champion?